Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mic Check
2.
My name is Rachel.
And I'm Sean.
And today we are joined, once again, a fan favorite, as we like to call her, Mallory.
Hello.
Hey, welcome
Hey, everybody.
back.
I'm so happy to be back. Thanks for inviting me again.
Back to back to back.
Yeah.
Back to back.
We are so happy you are here, and today we're going to be talking about healthy relationships. And I know we kind of dived into that a little bit before with our Love After HIV. So if y'all haven't seen that one, stop and go check that one out. But today we're going to dive a little bit deeper, like just relationships overall. Platonic, romantic, maybe workspace relationships. And, you know, we're just going to pick your brain a little bit, Mallory.
Sure. I'm ready for it.
Yes.
And for those that haven't seen Mallory's wonderful face or heard her voice, could you give us a little insight to who you are?
Yes. So my name is Mallory Medellin. I am an LPC here at St. Hope. I provide counseling, individual, family, and adolescents as well. And now I'm just started doing a group therapy, an HIV support group as well, virtually. So yeah, if anyone would like to join the group, I do that as well. And I've been here for about, I think, going on 3 years now. Feels like it's just flown by, but yeah, I'm happy to be here.
You're a vet now. 3 years. After year one at St. Hope, you're a vet.
You're seasoned.
Yeah, definitely seasoned.
So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. I know everybody hates that. We're going to talk about, don't do that, healthy relationships. So can you tell us some elements that make healthy relationships?
Yeah. So first, and I'm sure you probably heard this, but it's so true, is communication. Mm-hmm. I would say is the number one factor in a healthy relationship. Communication is important, and we'll kind of go into that a little bit more, but trust, respect, I think what else?
Boundaries,
yes. I think which kind of goes along with respect. Mm-hmm. Oh, something else is feeling equal. So kind of 50-50. Not everybody's going to have 50% to give all the time, but, you know, there's give and take. It's not just give, or take. And right. So, and I think all of these rules could apply to friendships and romantic relationships, you know, being able to communicate that.
Right. Because I saw a meme going around actually recently, and it was just like, we're getting older, like, your friends are tired. Like, if they don't make an event, it's okay. Like, just being, like, less hard on your friends. So I think that's a really good point. Just like communicating, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make this event today, but I still love you.
Yeah.
Don't cut me off the friend group.
That's very mean.
Right. So kind of going along with that, with the 50-50 too, is let's say friendship, since you brought that up. Mm-hmm. You have a friend that's maybe constantly reaching out to you, or let's say it's the opposite. You're always constantly reaching out to a friend, and you're like, man, like, this friend never texts me back. I'm always reaching out to them. Like, do they even care about me? You know, this might be something you're telling yourself. So you could go one way where you could just say, oh, well, like, forget them. They're not a good friend. Or you could communicate with them and say, like, hey, you know, I've noticed you're not reaching out. What's going on? You know, just kind of communicating with them, like, how you're feeling, or I'm feeling left out, or like, you don't put enough effort into me. And then kind of going from there. But maybe the friend's going through, let's say, mental health issues, right, or they're having family troubles. And so it's the other person's job to communicate that to you, like, hey, I'm going through something. Sorry if I haven't been reaching out. But then you could say, like, okay, so maybe I need to keep asking them to hang out or do something with me because they're not at that emotional capacity to do that. Right. So then it would be more like 80-20, you know? So when it comes to situations like that, where maybe you're unhappy with something that somebody else is doing, talk to them about it and see what's going on. What can we do to fix this? Is this working for you? And then depending on the response, you can kind of go from there, whether you think that this is something worth putting in that effort for, or just to say, like, you know, cut your losses, right, basically.
So let me ask, because I'm curious, because I'm very now I'm all for communication, but I'm very pro reciprocate friend energy. Mm-hmm. So me personally, even I'll ask eventually, like, is everything good? Are you going through something, whatever? But if I'm always the one to have to initiate a conversation, after X amount of times, I pull back.
Yeah, and that would be, I guess, like a boundary, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
What is your own emotional boundary when it comes to relationships? And that's personalized to everybody.
Because I know there's memes and stuff that go around like, if you don't call someone first, see how many times your phone rings,
like
stuff like that.
How long it takes them. So like for you, Sean, I guess I want to know, like, after your like third time reaching out, you don't hear from somebody, are you just kind of like, do you notice them like, hey, big head, like trying to be your friend again, or like, hey, stranger, like, or like?
I have actually one friend that just happened with, and it finally came out. But he's always been that way with everybody. Like he's the one where he's like, I don't really just reach out to people, but I'm like, bruh,
like you gotta.
At some point, hey, how are you? Are you alive? What? How's work? How's life? What's going on? Something. Give me some sort of life.
Yeah, I think one element for me that I'm learning would be expectations, but that goes along with communication. So like, I think that's very important. Like you have to communicate. Like as a friend, I expect like 3 calls a week, or not.
Oh no, not
that. Oh, that sounded crazy, but or
Girl.
when I text back, like I expect my friends to text back, kind of thing, or like or even if you're like kind of. Say you upset at your friend for any particular reason, like I feel like if I'm really your friend, you should be able to come and tell me. So I do like tell my friends off top, like that's an expectation. Like if I offend you in any way, like let me know, because it was never intentional. So I feel like that's like one of my strong things that I do in friendships, like because I need my friends. Like I feel like you don't realize how much you need your friend. Like no, please talk to me.
See, and I'm at a point like I finally got to where I can communicate, like the reciprocate friend energy. I'm finally able to communicate that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like usually I would pull away from someone and I wouldn't say anything about it, so it'd just be like that
Awkward.
weeks and months of not talking, and then finally it's like, well, what's going on? So.
It could have already been solved months before.
Right. So now I'm at the point where it's like, well, here's the deal. I get frustrated with always having to be the one to initiate a conversation with someone.
Yeah. So let's say you have that conversation with them, and then you can kind of gauge your response on how they respond almost. Like, let's say if they're like, oh, well, like, I don't care. Like, well, too bad. That's just me, who I am, and then you can respond to that how you want to. You can either choose to continue to pursue this relationship, based off of what you know about them. And then if they're respectful, or they're like, hey, I hear you. And then they start to, I don't want to say change, but they are taking more into consideration, like your feelings and like how that affects you. Then it's like, okay, maybe this person, it was just a one-off situation or something like that. But let's say they keep doing it. And we could even talk about like romantic relationships. You set a boundary like, hey, like, text me when you're home. I want to know you're safe, or something like that. But they always forget to text you back, and then you've expressed that to them, but they're not following through with that. That's your choice of whether you want to continue to pursue that or not, because we can't expect people to change or force them to change. We can't set rules for them. We still have to respect the other person's autonomy, but we also have to respect ourselves as well and what our own personal boundaries are. So I want to be in a relationship with someone who texts me when they're home. So, because I might feel anxious or worried if they're not home, at a certain time, or that I know they made it safe. And so, is this person willing to work with me and compromise, or are they just going to completely disregard how I'm feeling and not take me seriously? And then, then I can make that decision for myself of if I want to stay in this relationship or not. So you kind of have to gauge it a little bit, see how they respond, but not forcing anybody to like have rules, or there's a difference between setting rules and boundaries. Those are 2 different things.
Wait a minute, now explain that.
So
Because it's kind of like the same, isn't it? A little bit.
Setting rules and...
Because if you have a boundary, and that's basically like your own personal comfort zone, and I guess a rule is something that you just have to abide by, but wouldn't it be kind of...
So a rule would kind of be like an ultimatum, but also could be like you're trying to control somebody, or manipulation.
Like gaslighting.
Like gaslighting.
Okay.
Like you're not allowed to have any guy friends would be like a rule, not a boundary. And that would be a characteristic of an unhealthy relationship, or maybe even abuse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you talked a little bit too about self and like having boundaries within yourself. Like I feel like one of the most important relationships you should have with anybody should be yourself first, because that's how you set the boundaries. So like, how do you check in with yourself to be like, am I having a healthy relationship with myself to not allow people to continue to cross my boundaries maybe?
Yeah, relationship with yourself is so important. I say this all the time in therapy, but good on your own, but better together. So you want to be able to be good on your own, because when you're not, you may experience feelings of like loneliness or like insecurities, not feeling good enough, and then we rely on other people to fill those needs for us, which we shouldn't be going to other people, because then we end up staying with people that aren't good for us or are, not a healthy relationship because we're trying to get those needs met,
Right.
Which we don't always recognize. So yeah, practicing that self-love, spending time alone, which actually is another characteristic of a healthy relationship, is being able to spend time alone, being okay with yourself, having, doing meditation or yoga, going to the store all by yourself, trying to be an individual person, figuring out who you are, and so that when you are in a relationship, whether that's a friendship, romantic, however, you know what you're bringing to the table, and you know what it is that you have to give, to others.
Yeah, like me and Sean are just like, on the edge
Look,
of our
we're
chairs,
just
like,
really just like, oh, okay.
I love talking to Mallory because I'm always doing like a self checklist. Like, when was the last time you talked to yourself? Are you okay?
Yeah,
So,
self check-ins, those are always great.
Yeah.
And that comes with communicating too, is you have to know how you're feeling first before you can address it to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw a thing. I'm just gonna hit all the things I see
go ahead.
on Instagram, but it's just kind of like this thing, like for romantic relationships. Like, say something bothers you, they say a good point is to wait like 72 hours before bringing it up, and like if it still bothers you, then you should address it. But like the 3 days allows you to like process it and things like that.
I'm so
Sean's looking at
horrible
me
at
like,
that.
I don't know
not
about 3
waiting.
days.
Yeah.
I'm very impulsive.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
me
no,
too.
if you set me off, it's about to go down like right now.
But because like some things like really aren't as heavy as we make them in the moment. Like, so sometimes we might be like, he hurt my feelings, but then you may not realize like, oh my God, like they had the worst day of their life today, or like something happened, and we just always take things so personal. So that's why they say set the 3 day. I want to go for, I've never set no 3 days aside. I'm like, Sean, like, my feelings are hurt. Let's unpack this. Why would you say that to me? Like, that's me.
Right.
So do you think that's like maybe less time, maybe, or just?
I would say less time. Address it in the moment if you can. If you don't feel ready, if you're still feeling like emotionally charged, I probably would wait until you've calmed down. I think that would probably be the rule. But when we react to things, I want to say it's like a 90-10. It's either 90-10 or 80-20, something like that. But 90% is a reaction is how we're feeling. Maybe it triggered something in us. Maybe we feel like a need is being neglected. And needs are like feeling heard, being listened to, like those kind of things. So sometimes it hits those trigger points, and then we can just emotional reaction. And a lot of the time it's not the situation, but it's something that happened in your past.
Right.
So I felt disrespected, but that's like a pressure point. And then 10% is what the person actually did. Now, these are in abusive relationship. This does not apply.
Right.
Okay. Just want to point that out there. So taking time to reflect, like, okay, let's say, let me try to think of an example. Let's say my partner didn't do the dishes, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, why didn't he do that? And, like, he totally doesn't care about me. That's my maybe initial reaction. And so I have to take a minute. So maybe separate myself. If you're living together, maybe go to the bathroom, take a moment. Like if you feel that coming, because most of the time you can kind of feel it, you know,
like you're about
you got to pay
set it
attention
off.
to your body as well, like your heart, and you're just feeling hot. And so it's like, okay, this is not the right time to have a conversation. I need to be calm and cool so that I can talk to my partner about this. So what I would do is go take a break somewhere, maybe go upstairs or something. And I would ask myself, why am I feeling this way? Okay, I'm feeling neglected, or like my needs don't matter. And that's a pressure point for me. I know from like my childhood or like my past experiences. And so I'm like, okay, so that's what I'm feeling. Let me take a moment just to regulate, whether that's deep breathing, listening to music, whatever that is. And then when it's appropriate, like there's not people around, probably we're both in a calm space, then I can address my partner and say, hey, you also want to say how you're feeling and then what made you feel that way. So I felt neglected when you didn't do the dishes. I felt neglected when you didn't do the dishes because I felt like you weren't listening to me. And then so, depending on how the person responds, communication is a two-way street. So sometimes they don't always respond appropriately.
Yeah, they're like, oh, here you go. You know.
Why are you always nagging or tripping?
Yeah, right.
It's one spoon. No, I don't care. Oh, jeez. Wow. So
then that's when maybe like the defensiveness comes in. So the way that you approach people, like with conflict, I guess, and this goes for any kind of relationship, you want to be non-attacking. Mm-hmm. So no yelling, no name calling. You always do this,
You lost me at yelling.
Yeah. It's like, so, name calling is like, you always do this, or you always do this, blah, blah. So yeah, no name calling, no just walking away, or it's called stonewalling, where you just basically put a wall up between you and the other person and just block them, or whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Let me get my journal out.
I can give you my notes.
Yeah, please. I also heard too on the radio recently, and it was just like when you're communicating with somebody though, it's best to say, so you don't come off like you're attacking them. Like the story that I'm hearing in my head when you like didn't wash the dishes, like myself now is telling me like I'm neglected, or when you yelled, like, or just any like conversation that gets like conflict, like the story that I'm hearing in my head is like, you don't care about me, and people are able to receive it better. Like, okay, she's just crazy. She's hearing stuff in her head anyway.
That's how I was just looking at you like,
no, but they say like, instead of just being like, you neglected me because you didn't wash the dishes, you could be like, the story that's playing in my head right now is I feel neglected because when I was a child, or blah blah blah, and I know that's not what you're trying to project in this relationship. So like, go wash the dishes.
Yeah.
No? Please.
Right. Well, you want to use the key is using
Troy's
I
over
statements.
here like, oh wow.
Crack it up. But I mean, I heard it on the it made sense because like sometimes you do go into relationships or just normal conversation and you kind of get on defense. Like, let's say your example of not washing the dishes and you do feel neglected and you're just kind of like spazzing, like, and it could just be like, oh, I literally forgot to wash the dishes. Like, I had a long day. I'm gonna go wash them. Like, I don't want you to feel
I fell asleep after a long day at work.
Yeah. And then you can kind of problem solve at that point of saying, okay, this is something that brings me a lot of stress, when it doesn't happen. And you don't always have to say like from my childhood, whatever. You can just say like, this is how I'm feeling. But then you kind of problem solve, okay, what can we do now in the future to prevent this from keep on happening? Would reminders help? Would, if you set a timer on your phone, or, when you get home, just, you can kind of talk with them about like, okay, what are we going to do about this now so that it doesn't keep happening in the future?
So speaking of that, so that's a lot of, that involves a lot of communication. So what are effective ways to communicate aside from just, I guess talking or leaving a note. I know every now and then, even with like my roommate, I get text messages. Hey, don't forget to, and I'll get it like as I'm about to clock out, so it's like fresh on my mind. You know what I mean? Because then if you ignore it, it's kind of, or if you get it earlier in the day, it might cause conflict later because, like, let's say you got a message at 10 in the morning. Hey, can you do X, Y, Z? And then by the time 6 o'clock comes around, I'm ready to go to sleep. So the other person might get upset because, like, I know you see my message at 10 o'clock, like this morning, to do this. But
I think that's where expectation goes in. But also, like, knowing, not to cut Mallory, but, like, also knowing who you're dealing with. Like, I may be able to text you at 10, but I can't text you at 10 a.m.
Right. Like, for me, you wouldn't be able to text me or give me some kind of notification of or some kind of request earlier in the day because I have a busy day ahead. Hit me as I'm clocking out, as I'm about to walk to my car. And then that way it's fresh in my mind. I'm like, okay, I won't forget this as soon as I get home, or if I need to stop at the grocery store or whatever the case may have to be, boom, it's done.
Yeah. So let's kind of take that scenario and play it out a little bit. So let's say you communicate that to your roommate, like, hey, if you message me in the morning, I'm gonna forget. I'm doing a million other things. I'm not gonna remember till later. Like, that just doesn't work for me. It's not helping. So they're like, well, that's the only time I can text you in the morning. So I can't text you or remember every time you get off of work, you know? And say, okay, so what can we do instead? Because this current system is not working for us. So maybe, again, setting a timer on your phone when you get off of work, or, you guys can kind of problem solve. Part of being in a relationship, too, is compromise and finding some kind of middle ground. Even though you might not see eye to eye, it's going to happen. You have to make some kind of compromise and communicate about what you can do about that. But in a calm manner, not like, well, blah, 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 everybody yelling at each other.
Blankety.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so takeaway: do not yell.
That's
No
so
yelling.
hard.
That is.
I
It's hard when you
statements.
get passionate in a thing and you're just like.
I'm not even paying.
Yeah.
I just,
Oh, you're
Something
not
else.
passionate? You're just yelling.
it's just my blood pressure goes up and it's just like boom. We're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say also when it comes to communication, it does require some level of vulnerability because you do have to acknowledge how you're feeling.
All right. Thank y'all guys for
Sorry,
coming.
guys.
All right, Rachel is exiting the chat.
But yeah, vulnerability is important, but also accountability.
Yes. Yeah. Accountability.
Okay.
Keeping yourself accountable as well.
Because you have to be mindful of the other person's thoughts and feelings, and if you're respecting their boundaries.
Yeah. Are they going to respect that? Are they going to, listen or do something about it? And then, again, you decide where you want to go from there, whether they're acknowledging it or not, or they're keeping themselves accountable. If they really are putting any effort or aren't even trying, then, it's like, okay, well, is this something I want to tolerate or continue to tolerate?
Now, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
So, outside of talking to you, would you think it's bad to communicate your thoughts through text messages? Because I know some people convey their thoughts better through writing letters or, text, emails. Would that necessarily be a bad thing? I mean, it's still a form of communication, even though.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like about text messages is because there's that gray area where you can't really see the emotion behind the messages.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like words, and it's like you hear it in their tone. Kind of, I don't know if I'm the only one. I hear people's tones as I'm reading, but you can't really.
So I just have a random question. Have you ever had like a conversation with somebody and y'all like reading y'all text messages trying to see where the disconnect may have come? And like for some reason your voice when they say it, it's always like, and then you said, like, they always like your tone.
That's all the time.
Like, you're like, well, I didn't even say it like that. You're like, and then you said
Yeah,
it.
like
Like, you didn't
messages
mean it like that.
Yeah, I didn't mean it. Like, I just think it's so funny when you
There we
go
go.
through text
Like,
messages with people. They're like,
When that happens, I just call them. I'm
Yeah.
like, look, let's clear this up right now.
Yeah.
I've had that happen before.
It's like messages can be misconstrued.
Definitely.
Because you can't hear the tone in the person's voice, even though it's still a form of communication. You can't hear.
It's
that
not
tone.
ideal.
yeah, we always give them an attitude for some reason. We're always just like, you text with an attitude.
Why are you being so
Or
negative?
maybe we're expecting people to be that. Or our expectations of other people are them to be either malicious or to say something a certain way.
Yeah.
And maybe they are, but like take a moment to check in with yourself. Am I overreacting to this potentially?
Nah, I'm always like, did you see how you said that? Like,
Let me screenshot it and resend it to you so you can reread the entire thing,
Right.
and we're gonna come back to it.
or like
Yeah,
when people start
receipts.
like being extra correct on grammar, I'm like, okay, now you're picking with me. Like, you know you're upset.
So
Yeah.
But
I
would
mean,
you-
texting, it's not the best form of communication. I do think that face-to-face is probably the best form because you do get some of those nonverbal cues, nonverbal communication, right? Like tone, you mentioned, eye contact, body language. Are they like shaking their leg, going like this? Are they paying attention to you and looking to you in your eyes? So that nonverbal communication is very important. But, if communication is a struggle and let's say you're in a romantic relationship and your communication is not on at all. So sometimes a journal might be helpful for something like that. Or sometimes I'll suggest like have an emoji chart and put how you're feeling that day or something like that to help. That's like, kind of silly, but
maybe like
No.
it's a start.
It's not
Like
silly.
write it down and then like still talk to them face to face, but like
Somebody-
you still have your talking.
It's a start,
someone
yeah.
used to have
an emoji.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. He had an emoji
I
calendar,
forgot
and like
who
Sean
it-
used to put a little sticker of
See?
what he wanted,
There you
how
go.
he was
Yes.
feeling for that day.
there you go.
So if you ever comes to the front desk, there was I don't know where my sticker chart went,
Wow, so
but
cute.
on the register it's metal and it's a magnet and it's today I feel, and you could just
Put it every, and it had all the emotions.
and it had all your little emotions.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I need that. I'm not strong at communicating like in romantic relationships because I'm just like my feelings are hurt. It's done. That's it. But I'm trying to learn to be more better about that. But I don't communicate well in person because I'm like I'm sensitive, so I'm like a natural crier. Like Sean will literally be like, Rachel might be like, oh God, Sean, I know, and he'd be like, good morning, So like I'm just like a natural crier, and that doesn't work well for everybody because sometimes in past crying can lead like you're trying to manipulate me or different things like that. But I'm just like a natural
You're just sensitive.
Oh yeah.
So like
I'm sensitive too. I cry for everything.
Oh Jesus.
I found my tribe. I found my tribe. Yeah, like I'm like the wind blew. I'm like, did you feel that?
Yeah.
Like,
so I'll give a personal example too. Like I'm a big crier, and my husband, he's like, oh, like why do you always have to cry? And then sometimes I'll say like, or we'll kind of reassure each other like I'm crying, but it's not about you, or it's like I'll have to kind of give that reassurance because it makes him not uncomfortable, not anymore. He's used to it now, but before
he's like has
I'd be like,
in his pocket, like
I'm just crying, like I can't help it. I'm sorry. Like this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sorry, but you know.
I actually had to learn that, like, because I went to therapy too, and I had to, like, she helped me realize, like, your body is just reacting. So, like, now if I'm about to get teary, I'm like, I'm not upset, I promise. My body is just figuring out what we're trying to say. And some people, like, understand, and some people are just like,
I still work on delivery.
Yeah.
So, for people that know me, like, I'm really sarcastic, and sometimes I have a lot of dry humor to me. So,
no, not you, Sean.
No, never. But from what I've been told,
Oh, what you been told?
like sometimes my delivery can be extremely dry. And the word I want to use I can't say on here, but it's like it comes across as a blank. But it's like I have to work on my delivery with people because I know everybody can't take that sarcasm the same way.
Yeah.
So like imagine like if I'm talking to Rachel, I may say something that's like I'll be just blunt and blah, and she's like, "You're just insensitive," and then next thing you know, she cries, and it's like.
When we first started working
Making
together,
Rachel cry.
fun fact, Sean, I was crying like once a week. I was like, you just don't understand. He was just like, I need you to go eat and calm it down.
Oh yeah, I was good for that.
But you have
Go
I think
eat and
that
come
goes
back.
with like knowing people, because like the more I got to know
Right.
Sean, I was just like, okay, like it's not personal. Like he just is
I'm just
blankety blank.
And then you can choose like, okay, this is somebody I want to be around, or this is something I'm okay with tolerating, the dry sense of humor.
Right.
And also, if you were to communicate that to him, like, hey, like when you say that kind of stuff, like it makes me feel really uncomfortable or upset. Can you not do that anymore? And then you can respond how you want. If you could either be like no,
okay.
or
Yeah, Sean. No, I'm still gonna say it.
yeah.
So I have a question. I'm kind of into the healthy relationship. So like, how do you differentiate? Like, are we just going through like a hard patch? Like my partner is probably not listening to me on this certain topic, or like, is this really just unhealthy altogether?
Yeah, I would say the difference is the frequency and the severity of it. So, everybody goes through situations, and, you're not always going to be great, and especially not in a relationship. And so how frequent is that happening? How frequent is the communication lacking? Or is there any effort to problem solve? And are they disregarding you and not validating your feelings? Or, and if that's happening all the time, then that's like, okay, that's not good, because we're getting nowhere. It's not healthy. But if they're manipulating, as we mentioned, manipulation, controlling, isolating you, name calling, threatening, all that kind of stuff, that's abuse. That's an abusive relationship. And abuse can look like physical abuse. I've heard some people say, well, he didn't hit me, so that he's not abusing me. But there's
mental abuse,
verbal abuse, financial abuse. You don't have any money, how are you going to go? That's another form of abuse as well. So if you're abusive relationship, those kind of things, at any point, is that happening, that's not good. But if it's just an unhealthy relationship, you guys are just going through a rough patch, what are you doing to make it better? And is that happening all the time? If it's happening all the time, that's, maybe a sign that relationship is not good.
Like the same issue all the time, you think?
Yeah.
Like if I'm having to tell you like, this hurts my feelings, like this is like my 12th time telling you, that's probably like a sign. Like,
and even like Mallory said, even not just if it's the 12th time, but if there's if there's a pattern of inconsistent, like
cheating, mistrust, dishonesty, lying about spending money, or I'm just throwing things out there, but if that's constant, then that's definitely not good.
Well, they always say pay attention to the red flags.
They said the red flags are the reasons you leave, and the beginning red flags are the reasons you end up leaving. But
I kind of believe that, but
because you don't pay attention to it, you're just like, okay, he's not the best with his money, but I can teach him. And then like, now you're both filing at the bank for bankruptcy, and you're just like, I guess I'm not a great teacher.
Yeah, expecting others to change isn't healthy.
So like if I stay with you thinking like, oh, he's gonna change, like, now that's unhealthy behavior on my end, or trying to make somebody change. Yeah.
If it continues, trying to make someone to change, they have to be willing to change it by themselves and want that for themselves as well. Yeah. If the relationship is important enough. So if they're not willing to change, kick them to the curb.
Bye.
Period.
Bye.
Hashtag bye.
And our first hashtag of the episode.
Got me one. Yeah, so I think it really is important because, like, sometimes I know couples that may, like, date somebody for, like, 3 months and they hit the honeymoon is done. The 90-day, day 91. And so they're just kind of like, I'm done, checking out again. And they're just, like, repeating those patterns. But, like, sometimes it's not, like, you have to check in with yourself. So, like, y'all just hit a hard patch. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's unhealthy. So some things you do have to, like, take accountability for, communicate with your partner and stuff like that. Even in friendships, like, you're just kind of like, if you're a friendship hopper.
It's like one thing.
I don't believe in a friendship hopper. I'm very firm in sometimes you can have friends, but you outgrow them.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing that you outgrow someone. It's just my path in life right now is not aligning with your path right now. Maybe I'm trying to start a business venture and I'm aligning myself to, like, do this, but you're still just wanting to only talk about, let's say, go out. Let's just go out. I'm like, no, I'm trying to build a business. Can we talk about business ventures? Can we talk about how we're gonna, like, excel and make ourselves better and great for the following year? And if you can't talk to me on that level and you only can talk to me about this, it's kind of like there's a slight disconnect. And it's not necessarily that we can't be friends, but this is where I'm at.
Right.
So I see that you're not there, so I'm just going to kind of back away a little bit. I mean, I'm going to talk to you about it, of course, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just
where you're at in life.
Yeah.
I used to hate those memes that be like, no new friends. Like, no, I would like new friends.
I like new friends.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, take the place of my old friends, but, like you said, each chapter of your life, you're, like, trying to do something different. So, like, you know, you may have your going out friends, or you may have your family friends, or
you have your church friends. You know, you have
friends.
Yeah.
It's no harm, but some people get really, like, possessive. Is the word. Like, no, you're only my friend. Like, you see those Lifetime movies? Like, I'm just like, you better get out of there. Like,
yeah,
see, that's why you're crying.
That's isolation. That is abusive.
Those Lifetime movies make you cry.
Oh, growing up, yeah. Blame my grandma.
Yeah.
She had that Lifetime on.
But if they're saying, like, you're only my friend, then that's abusive. That's, you know, they're trying to isolate you or keep them to themselves. Again, healthy is being able to be on your own and together. But yeah, I mean, relationships, they're kind of on a spectrum, right? You can choose who you want to be more involved with or who you maybe want to step back from. And that's okay to do those kind of things. And not everything needs a conversation. It's good to communicate your feeling, especially if you feel like you've been wronged or, you know, something's really bothering you, but you want to work on this relationship. You know, the communication would be appropriate. But if you're like, you know, we're just not really feeling eye to eye, it's okay to take a step back too and do it in that way as well.
That's for me, because I feel like every feeling I have, we got to talk about it.
See, I'm not like you said, not every feeling, but if it's something where I feel like somebody's wronged me, yes, I'm going to want to talk about it. But if it's something minor that I don't feel like, like, just say if we're just looking in two different directions in life, it's like, I'm just pulling myself back for me.
Just leave it be.
Yeah, it's there, but
if I'm hurt,
we're not beefing or anything.
Yeah.
It's
I guess it depends how much you care about the relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
Because if you hurt my feelings, you're gonna know about it, and that could probably be, like, draining. Like, girl, your feelings are always hurt. Like,
yeah, I have what I call, like, high maintenance friends and, like, low maintenance friends. Some of them do require, like, take a lot of energy out of me, or, you know, not as much, and so I've learned to accept that, though. Like, this is the way this person is, but I still want them in my life, and I know that that's how they are. So I just gotta prepare myself a little bit for that.
It's actually funny for me, though. Like in my friendships.
Which one are you? Is the question.
Yeah, Sean.
I'm a little both.
Both.
It's like,
I think you're high maintenance when you need to, like, vent about something. Like,
it's
you're
like, I know this.
Stop what you're doing. This is Sean's time. But I was gonna say, actually, my friendships, I don't feel high maintenance. Like, in my relationships, I'm just like, I feel like maybe that's like your safe place. So like in my relationships, I'm more like high maintenance. But my friendships, I'm like, oh, she didn't call me for a week. Like, I hope she's okay. Like, I have her location. Her car is moving. Like, I'm cool. Like, not like that. Like, but you know, like in your friendships, I guess because like your friends, they really know you. Like, because you probably shared more things with your friends and things like that. Like when you're
more vulnerable.
Yeah. You stress your friends are really important to you. So that's something that, you obviously it's really important to you. So you care a lot about and keeping those connections.
Yeah. So, but I'm real low maintenance. Like if they're probably like, you do a podcast? Like I'm so low maintenance. Friends wise.
Oh.
Relationship wise. I'm like, you need to comment. Why haven't we seen you comment on our podcast? Like
that's about right.
Yeah.
Don't judge me, Sean. We all have our quirks and things. And this is why we're talking about healthy relationships. Because I feel like a lot of people don't focus on it enough. Like, you don't realize it's so easy to blame the other person for maybe why you feel like you're in an unhealthy relationship. Like, oh, well, maybe if my friend would have called me. Or maybe if my partner washed the dishes. Like, but you have to, like, take accountability. Like, did you try to call? Did you try to do switch a chore? Like, hey, I see that you don't really like washing the dishes. Do you want to take on laundry? Like,
trash duty.
Yeah. Did you even communicate how you're feeling? I mean, it's definitely a two-way street. I mean, you could be the one that's, struggling with communication and all these other things. So, yeah, definitely taking a moment to check in with yourself. What could I do better to be better in this relationship?
Mm-hmm. How long have you been married, Mallory, now?
I've been married 6 months, actually.
Oh.
But I've been with my partner for 6 years,
yeah.
Going on 7.
Did the marriage change anything? Like, did you feel like... Cause sometimes people get
I
the
said
marriage.
it did.
Yeah.
I think so. I felt like I was more responsible for him. Not like that, but like we're like legally married, so like we have a responsibility for each other.
Right.
But yeah, so I feel closer.
Mm-hmm. Troy, I'm put Troy in the spotlight. Troy, how long you and Cheryl been married?
Going on 17 years.
17 years. What did you learn in these 17 years? Every feeling doesn't matter? Does it need to be talked about?
For me, I've had to learn she's sensitive like you are.
Oh, yes.
So
That's
I
my
have
girl.
to not take it personally.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to listen to her and ask her how she's feeling about everything.
That's good.
And that's funny because me and Troy work really closely together, and he's very he's more of a direct, and I'm more like sunshines and rainbows. Good morning. He's just like, what do you need? And then he's like, good morning. So like we had to learn that working together. So even like with work relationships, you like have to learn that. And I could see Cheryl being like, good morning. I feel today, and Troy's probably like,
yeah,
just smiling like, what's today's
feeling?
We got in a lot of fights the first couple of years because she wakes up talking and asking questions.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to communicate when I wake up.
Yeah.
Leave me alone for an hour.
Who does that sound like?
Who does it sound like? You?
At work?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Sean,
yeah.
That's how Sean is at work. Like, Sean needs a cup of coffee, maybe his second cup, and then you can approach him at work.
That's very...
And Troy's like, yes! Y'all can't see him on camera. He's like, exactly.
The longer you get to know somebody, you learn kind of their quirks and how they operate best and when's the best time to approach and not approach.
Yeah, so we finally got to the point where we wake up in the morning and she goes and has quiet time and I go and have quiet time, and after about 45 minutes
y'all come together.
That's
nice.
very mean.
No, but I didn't realize that I didn't like talking in the morning either until I got a partner who like wakes up and like, let's get the day, and I'm like, no, like please, like, sir. So it's funny how you think like I'm dating and I'm learning like what I like and don't like. So I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I want a morning person. I want somebody who wakes up and then we're talking about feelings. And now you get somebody you're just like, no.
Like you're draining my battery before it's even like charged already.
But like we have that balance now. Like we're learning each other. Like so he'll go like, oh, let me go do a chore or something, and I'm still like in bed like, let me get on TikTok for like my 30 minutes to my alone time. And yeah. So that's just funny. Like you think you want a certain thing and then you get it and it's like, please, if you never talk to me again, it'll be too soon.
Even after work, I was like that. So, like, my good example with one ex of mine, when I would come home from work, I needed at least an hour or so of PlayStation. And I had to play Call of Duty. It's like, no. Hi, let me go in the room, shower, give me a second to decompress and play Call of Duty. Let me have my me time.
Way. Oh no! After work, I'm like, love right now. It's like,
and I would run away quickly.
I'm like,
I'm very pro me time. It's like Just
Yeah.
give me a little me time, and then we can reconvene, have dinner. But just give me a minute.
But
That's part
on
of my
PlayStation, I would just be like counting it down. I'd probably be like staring a hole in your back of the head.
I could
9 minutes.
Well, I could really see him like a little rocking shit.
Like, he's almost done. Telling myself to calm down. He's almost done. Okay, so I just have one other question.
Oh, wait.
Go
So
ahead.
I wanted to tie something in with this. Since you guys have been in like lengthy relationship, like this is a lengthy thing that you guys have done. What have you noticed that when you looked at other couples or relationships, what is something that you notice is successful within those that kind of, I want to say, inspired or motivated you to know this is something that I would look forward to in my own personal relationship?
Say 3 things: communication, listening, and compromise.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, you've been married a lot longer than I have, but what would you say?
Your 3 things.
We're looking at Troy for the people that are just listening.
You know, what I look at is, I look at just our people being considerate of one another and kind toward each other. Because a lot of times as relationships age, they start getting harsher and more critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people continue to be kind and considerate towards one another, when you see a guy like making sure his wife is getting what she needs at the restaurant instead of leaving her on her own to just figure it out,
Right.
like actually being aggressively considerate.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that's a really strong point.
Yeah. And
There's
just for our listeners, next time we're going to have Troy's mic set up because we're always like
nice.
putting him on the spot. We're always like,
This is kind of our new thing for the
a
years.
question for Troy every episode now. I'm sorry.
There's a therapist, I can't remember her name. She's a relationship therapist, but I was watching a video of hers, but she said something about we give so much of ourselves to other people, to our friends, to our work, you know, in different areas of our life. But then when we get home, we're so drained. Sometimes we forget to give the best parts of ourselves to our partners. And I can relate to what Sean said. You know, when I'm home, I'm talking to people all day, so I have like very little capacity whenever I get home.
You're
so
like, don't mutter
I'm like,
a
I just
word.
need a moment to myself. But my partner can recognize that. But I try to, as much as my patience is like very low at that point, I try to still be, you know, considerate of like his feelings, or, you know, it's the first time I've seen him all day, and, you know, trying to kind of rein myself in, and yeah. So give the best parts of yourselves to the person that matters most.
And then it also deals with compromise, because at times, you know, you got to realize that you may not be able to give yourself an hour
Today.
because, you know, your partner may have some kind of expectation when you walk through the door of like, this is something that we want to do. So you have to compromise, be like, you know what? Mentally prepare before you get home.
Right.
This is what I'm
Take
about to
the
get
long
myself
way
in.
home.
Yeah.
Right? Let me take the long way home. I'm stuck in traffic and got in a car accident and everything, and I got a ticket.
Can't make it on. But I think that's a good point. Like, maybe like on Monday you're not gonna get an hour, but like Tuesday your partner may work late, so you know that'd be the time you get to make up like your game time.
I just wanted to
You
say,
can't have it all. Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Another hack when it comes to communicating is repeating what the other person said back to you to make sure that they heard you. Because sometimes we're so focused on our defense already, or what we're going to respond with, that we're not really listening in that moment. We're in our own head. So when someone says something, to repeat, okay, so you said you feel neglected because I didn't do the dishes. Am I saying that right? Because sometimes we make our own interpretation and we're like, oh, well, you just don't care about me, you know? They're like, no, that's not what I said. So yeah, reflective listening and reflecting back what they're saying to you to make sure that you heard them right. And they may correct you or they may not.
That's really hard because sometimes it comes off sarcastic. They're like, so what I'm hearing you say.
Oh,
And you're
yeah.
like,
Well,
nah,
don't say it like that.
now we're ready to fight. Now I'm like,
no,
let's-
I've run into that problem.
Yeah,
So
because you-
because you hear our
And to say, okay, you're having a tone with me. You're starting to raise your voice. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Then you go and say, I'm going to take a break. 30 minutes. We'll come back.
I would love to marry you, Mallory. You're probably just rainbows and sunshines at home.
Oh,
But
my partner hates it. He's like, oh, we got to do all this. But it really does help.
he's probably like,
He's
he's
gotten-
therapy me.
Yeah.
That's okay. So I
He's
have
learned.
one last question that I want to ask, and I'm not sure if you have anything else, Sean, but just ways to stop self-sabotaging in any relationship. Like, you know, you may start thinking like, oh, I'm not worthy to be in this relationship, or like, I know I'm a crier, so like, oh, am I ever gonna be in a relationship where I don't cry? Or like you start self-sabotaging, or like Are you like, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Just
But
first thing they do, you cut them off rather than give them a chance. Self-sabotage. So I would say maybe take a moment to self-reflect and think about all the relationships you've been in. Okay, what have been the patterns? What have I consistently done that have resulted in either like a negative result or like in conflict? Something's not working here. Was it the person? Is it me? Just kind of reevaluating your relationships and noticing if there's any patterns. Again, that's the self-love, the recognizing your self-talk. How are you talking to yourself?
Right.
Are you saying things like, I am worthy, all those things? Or are you saying like, oh, I'll never find a relationship? So yeah, just to do check in. You can also go to therapy, have a therapist help you. Sometimes we can recognize patterns that you don't notice within yourself. Lots of self-love, self-reflection, journaling.
I think that's a really good point. And therapy, like you mentioned earlier, the support group. So just finding support groups for your support needs.
Yes. Yeah, there's all kinds of support groups. You'd be surprised.
So, did you have anything you wanted to ask, John, add?
Trying to think. No, you pretty much, you covered me.
I covered you.
You did.
Well, Mallory, is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe we didn't touch on in regards to healthy relationships?
Probably the same thing I said last time is you're all worthy of love and acceptance, and yeah.
Oh, what type of healthy relationship classes do we? I know you have the HIV support group. Is that the only class that we have available, right? I want to say
currently,
yes.
Yeah, currently that's the only one. We may introduce other topics as well, like one specifically for careers or relationships, but that one's still kind of in the works.
Okay.
We're just starting with the HIV support group, and then we'll go from there.
Right.
Okay. So, can you kind of dive in just for people that don't know, like
what location you guys are offering?
Yeah.
What location and what
great
exactly?
Question. So we have 3 locations. There's a support group in Conroe, and they will be restarting, I think, sometime in August. They are an in-person group, and then there's also a support group in Greenspoint as well that I think will also start in September. I don't know the specific dates, but you can go to our website to find those. Greenspoint and Conroe are both in-person. Men, women, whatever you are, everything is accepted. Everyone is accepted. The only criteria, I guess, would be HIV positive. But, we talk about all different kinds of topics, within the group.
Like, what type of things? We talked
about, relationships. My group tomorrow is about relationships, so this is perfect. Disclosure, dating, self-acceptance, self-love, we talk about all those kind of things. And then there's one more location, which is at Sugarland, which I forgot to mention, which is the group that I currently run, and that one's virtual. So no matter where you are in the area, as long as you're a patient of St. Hope, you can join that group virtually as well through Zoom. Okay. And they're all private. You can use a pseudonym if you don't feel comfortable sharing, your real name. I know that, some people might be scared to join, but if that helps, that's something you can do. If you have any more questions about the groups, you can always give myself, Shirletta, or Josephine, the other counselors here. You can give us a call and we can talk to you about it personally, and we'd have no problem doing that.
Right. Warm you up to. I think it's a great thing. So, as always... Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say that you can even meet people in that group, and you could somewhat build like a healthy relationship, or have, you know what I mean? Like have a partner or someone that you can talk to that is on your same level playing field, and
somebody you can confide in. Going through similar stuff. Yeah,
a lot of people, or some people that have joined the group said they've never actually met anybody that was HIV positive, and so that was an experience for them to meet other people and have people go through the same situations. We all need relationships. We're humans. It's a part of a need that we have, and so that's why groups can be so useful for things like that, so we feel less alone and have more of a community and support system. So that's what that's for.
Very good. Love it.
I love it. Okay, so as always, we're missing Aja. She's soon to join us back, hopefully in August. But we really, 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 really appreciate you back to backing us, Mallory.
Thanks for having me.
So
We're gonna give
y'all
her a
see
trophy.
Yeah, you've made the most appearances on Mic Check 2.
Really?
So now we're just gonna get your chair.
My name.
Yeah, have your name on the chair. But we really appreciate you, and I always walk away feeling like I've learned something and like, oh, I'm worthy of stuff. So I love
Good.
talking
I love
with
that.
you.
Yeah, so we kind of both were just, for people that were watching this, you see it, but for those listening, me and Rachel really have our moments where we're just kind of like,
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. And then it's so funny because you could tell like your first podcast, you were just like, I don't know, guys.
I was so nervous.
And now you're just like, yeah. And so last week I was there. Yeah. So I love the growth, and we're just really, really excited to have you here as always.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for having me.
no problem. And if you guys want to speak with Mallory, Charlotta, or any of our counselors, feel free to check out our website. You can get more information on them as well as schedule any other services you may need at offeringhope.org. Or you can give us a call at 713-778-1300. And just remember, here at St. Hope Healthcare, you're more than just a number.